I've met lots of people who were, well, suicidal because of that, but also unwilling to take care of themselves, you know, because they were so guilty about who they were and their mode of being in the world that they just felt that they weren't worth the damn trouble, you know, and they all had their own particular reasons for believing that, their own failures, their own improper sacrifices, let's say, their own acts of individual malevolence, but they're summed up in a lovely metaphorical manner, a horrifying metaphorical manner, in those ancient stories. And those stories explain to us, too, why as well that our consciences don't sit well with us and why we always feel that there's something undone that we should be doing in the world, which is a much better pathway to take, by the way, than to degenerate into nihilism and catastrophe. And that's really rule 2. It's like, well, you should treat yourself like you're someone responsible for helping. And the first question is, well, why don't you? And the answer is, well, there's a lot wrong with you, you know, and it's hard to exercise enough love and care in a deep and non-naive way to care properly for something like that. But, you know, you do it for people that you love despite their inadequacies, and there is this idea that there is a spark of divinity within us, and it is possible that the fact that you have that spark of divinity within you also means that you have the capability to withstand that terrible vulnerability. That's what I was trying to get at in chapter 1, which was to stand up straight with your shoulders back, that you could actually voluntarily accept the onslaught of the tragedy of being, and that you can constrain the proclivity for malevolence that's part of you and that's part of the world. And in that you can discover your own value, your own intrinsic value, and your own nobility. And all of that might be more powerful than the forces of vulnerability and malevolence themselves, which I also happen to believe. And I think that that is in some sense the fundamental hallmark of faith. And so chapter 2, and to some degree chapter 3, which is to surround yourself with people who want the best for you, it's an encouragement to assume, to act out the proposition that even if life is as difficult as it seems to be, and if you're as vulnerable and weak in a fundamental sense as you definitely are, and characterized by this terrible propensity for the infliction of voluntary suffering on yourself and others, and that destructive tendency, that there's still something within you that's so remarkable and so aligned with order and being in the proper manner that you can climb above that, let's say like Abel, and that you can make the proper sacrifices, and that you can set yourself right, and you can set your family right, and you can set the world right, and that the mere possibility that that might occur, that that might be within the realm of potential, means that you have a moral obligation to exercise the responsibility to take care of yourself as if you're something that matters. And that if you did that properly, it might turn out that what you did would matter, that it would matter to you, that it would be meaningful in the way that things that matter are meaningful, and that it would matter to everyone around you.
And then, of course, by the time the child is old enough to be launched out into the social world, then all the constraints that are associated with the playground are immediately placed on that child, and that's a very unforgiving landscape, right? Because the last thing a child wants, really, the last thing a child wants is not to have any friends, or even perhaps equally seriously, not to have a best friend. I read something so idiotic the other day that I couldn't believe it. So the newest prince, so Queen Elizabeth's, I guess, great-grandchild, is off to daycare in the UK. And in this daycare, they don't let the kids have best friends because that's unfair. I thought, you know, sometimes you see something that's so stupid you can't even believe it exists. And that was one of those examples, because it's been known for quite a long time that one of the developmental milestones that children attain somewhere between, say, the age of 5 and 10 is they pick a best friend. And so they, and you know, the hypothesis is, well, that's unfair to all the other children. It's like, well, first of all, you can't be the best friend to everyone, because then maybe there's 1 billion children, so each of them gets 1 second. It's like, that's just not a very deep relationship. So the idea that you can be equally friendly with everyone is, it's a preposterous. But even worse, the thing that the child's doing is actually becoming, they're stepping out of their egocentricity, because their best friend becomes more important than they are. And that's a precursor for adult relationships where, you know, if you're married, well, your partner should be at least as important as you are, and the relationship should be more important. But then when you have children, it's like, they're more important than you. That's that. It's, unless there's something wrong with you, you come second and your children come first. And they're way first. They're not just a little, I mean, you're necessary, because without you, they're not going to manage. So you have to take care of yourself. But you're not number one anymore once you have kids, unless, seriously, unless you didn't learn the lessons in the playground. And when you have a best friend, you're not number one. They are. And so, well, so anyways, there are these constraints that emerge in the social landscape. You have to have friends, and also you have to single someone out as particularly unique among those friends and establish a genuinely reciprocal and caring relationship. I can't remember the psychiatrist who studied this so intently. Unfortunately, he was the first person to do a detailed analysis of the best friend relationships that children established. I'd like to give him credit for his ideas, but unfortunately I can't remember his name. So, okay,